What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the Neighborhood Podcast. One of the hosts of the podcast. My name is Kyle Dabro. So, in this video, we're going to go over Sha'Carri Richardson not being selected for the U.S. relay team in track. So, Richardson, if you guys hadn't known, she was the one who had tested positive for marijuana last week. With the failed drug test, she is currently serving a 1 month suspension from that failed drug test. It meant that she would no longer be able to compete in the 100-meter dash, where she absolutely dominated in the U.S. trials just a couple weeks ago. However, there was a slight chance that she would be selected to the relay team at the end of the Tokyo Olympics. Essentially, the relay would come after her suspension would be served, and there would be a chance that she could compete in that if she was selected to the roster. However, she was not selected to that relay team, and Richardson will not be able to compete into the Tokyo Olympics in a couple weeks from now. So I have an article pulled up here from the New York Times that kind of goes into the story a little bit deeper. So let's pull that up real quick. And as you can see, we'll start from the top. Sha'Carri Richardson, the American sprinter whose positive test result for marijuana cost her a spot in the women's 100 meters at the Tokyo Olympics and ignited a debate about marijuana and sport, will miss the games entirely after being left off of a relay team, American track officials announced on Tuesday. So this team was already selected prior to Richardson's failed drug test just a couple weeks ago. And I think a lot of people that were upset about the fact that she wouldn't be able to compete in the 100-meter dash thought that there was a slight chance that she could be selected for the relay team, but that unfortunately for Richardson will not happen, and she will miss the Tokyo Games entirely. And going off of the article here, it seems to appear that she's going to be focusing on competitions after the Olympics take place and maybe start gearing up for a possible run at the 2024 Olympics a couple years down the road. Now, I know as a channel we did not talk about this story that popped up a couple weeks ago. Oh, excuse me, it was last week in particular. Um, I don't know much about Sha'Carri Richardson. I'm not going to claim that I do, but I know one thing for sure is that she was sensational in her U.S. trials before her failed drug test. And the way that I see this scenario that took place that affected her, um, she had lost her biological mother. And I don't want to lose sight of that because I don't want to come off as too harsh or too critical about the decisions that she made. Look, in my eyes, she made a mistake. And it's one that's going to cost her probably the biggest moment in her professional career up until this point. I mean, to be able to compete in the Olympics for the United States, to have a very good chance to win the gold medal in the 100-meter dash, it doesn't get that much bigger than that. And unfortunately for her, she made a decision that, in my opinion, cost her that opportunity. And I understand going through the grieving process. I understand that she was obviously overcome with a lot of emotion due to the fact that she lost her mother. It's like I said, I don't want to lose sight of that. But with the decisions that she made in using weed prior to going to the Olympics, she took that opportunity out of her hands. And unfortunately for her, she tested positive and she won't be able to compete. Now, I've seen a bunch of arguments from people that are supporting Richardson and were essentially saying that she should be able to compete despite the fact that she tested positive for marijuana. It's first of all, it's not fair to the rest of the runners who are going to compete in the 100-meter dash if they all abided by the rules and they would allow Richardson to compete despite the fact that she broke the rules. I understand that some people think that marijuana should not be that big of a deal if you're using it in your spare time and you're not affected by it in the moment when you're competing. But the rules stipulate that you cannot test positive for marijuana prior to the Olympics. And if you do, there will be a suspension that comes along with that. And in Richardson's case, she unfortunately tested positive and won't be able to compete. That's just the consequences of her decisions. And it's like I said, I don't want to come off as too critical here or too harsh. It's just she had everything in her hands. Like everything was set up. She was ready to go. She had a very good chance. If she'd probably be the odds-on favorite to win the Olympics. To win the 100-meter dash in the Olympics. Unfortunately, she made some poor choices. And it's like I said, we're not immune to making mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. But this was one that was avoidable. And it's just unfortunate that she won't be able to compete, but she did it to herself. And I think to a lot of people that are bringing up Michael Phelps as a comparison to why was he allowed to race in swimming throughout the Olympics when he is known to be one of the biggest potheads in not only professional sports, but Olympic sports as well. The difference is that Michael Phelps didn't test positive for marijuana leading up to the Olympics in 2008 and 2012. And there were multiple times where he was suspended from U.S. swimming, not because of weed, but because of alcoholic issues. In 2014, he served a 6-month suspension from U.S. swimming after he was involved in a DUI. I also do want to mention the fact that I believe this was in 2009. This took place after the Beijing Olympics. I could be wrong here. But he served, I believe, a 3-month suspension after a photo surfaced of him hitting a bong in 2009. So he served those suspensions. And those are the consequences that he had to go along with after he made those decisions. And not only in Olympic sports, there have been other athletes that have used marijuana. In some cases, they've gotten away with it. Calvin Johnson, he used to play for the Detroit Lions. He was quoted in saying that he would smoke weed all the time, but he never tested positive for marijuana. Though in Josh Gordon's case, Josh Gordon was a wide receiver for the Cleveland Browns. He was a habitual weed smoker, but he tested positive for marijuana multiple times, and it essentially cost him his NFL career. When it comes to Michael Phelps, when he used marijuana, I imagine he stopped using it while he was preparing to go for the Olympics. In Sha'Carri's case, that's not the same. She used marijuana essentially after the death of her mother, and she unfortunately tested positive for it. And it's like I said, this was an opportunity of a lifetime for her. However, she took it out of her hands, and now it's up to the U.S. track team to essentially hand out the punishment for that. And it's unfortunate because I think there was a very good chance that she was going to win the relay race, the 100-meter dash for the United States. It's just unfortunate that we won't be able to get to see her compete in the next couple of weeks or so. So, it's like I said, I don't want to come off too harsh here. It's just unfortunate at the end of the day. But she made a mistake and she has to own up to it. And that's just my opinion on it. But with that said, you guys, that'll wrap up the video from here. If you guys like the video, please like the video below. If you guys want to support the channel in any way, shape, or form, please hit that subscribe button below. Any sort of support that we can get for the channel, Kevin and I definitely appreciate it. And we will see you guys later.